Welcome to Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I'm your host, Dean Phillips. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Precision Metalforming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation, for helping us to put this show together. I have with me today, here we go, here she is, Beth Weissenrieder-Bennis from Weiss-Aug, where she is the Executive Vice President. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Dean. So great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Tell us right off the bat, what do you see as some of the big takeaways coming in the next 5 years?
Definitely technology. This week at IMTS, that was what was on everybody's mind. Robotics, cobots, Industry 4.0, new ERP systems. I think as we look to the next 5 years and beyond, we're going to see more and more innovation, especially as we still continue to deal with our labor concerns. So just technology and everything. My business, we are in the automotive and medical device markets. On the medical device side, we're going to see more smart devices, from surgical instruments to devices that are wearables that are going to monitor your health. And with the evolution in EVs, we'll continue to see more technology in cars year after year.
That's an awful lot that's happening right now in technology. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited about the next 5 years. Tell us about your background. How did you get involved in manufacturing?
Sure. Well, my company is a family-owned business. It was started by my father, who emigrated from Germany in the late 60s as a tool and die maker, and he started the company in 1972. So we are actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, which is very exciting. Like many kids in a family business, I started by working summers in every department, from quality to manufacturing to being the receptionist at the front desk. It wasn't always my plan to have a formal career in manufacturing. In fact, I thought about going into business in other fields, and even interned in Manhattan at some fashion houses. But I really missed working in manufacturing and being part of a company that's building something, and that you can then see, whether it's in your car or a medical device or something to that effect. So, after college and after a couple years in, different companies, I made my way back into Weiss-Aug. And, at that time we were, one location. And, today we have 7 locations and are continuing to grow into other industries and other technologies outside of metal forming. So it's been an exciting journey, and also a very special one because, I get to work with my father, my husband, and my brother. So, not a unique story, but I think a very good one.
Yeah. First, congratulations on the anniversary for your company. That's fantastic, especially in this day and age. It's good to see companies with that kind of longevity and still maintaining a family feel. I think that's really important. And congratulations on being the female version of George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. You can't get out of it. That is a problem with this industry. I will say that. Years ago, when I was at, I think it was at FabTech show, we were talking to several other people, and one of the things that came up is that it's that people just don't get out of this industry in general, in manufacturing and forming and fabricating. You see the same people. They may move around from different booths, but it's the same people, because once you have that in your DNA, it's very difficult to shift, because there's always things that kind of pull you back in, whether it's just families or other things. But that is tremendous to see. So congratulations.
Thank you. And, I have to agree with you. Manufacturing and metal forming specifically, it's a community. There's definitely a community feel. I was just at the battery show last week in Novi, Michigan. And, it was great to see a lot of familiar faces in the industry. But I have to say, there were definitely a lot of women, a lot of, diversity at the show. Mm-hmm. And I can say the same for IMTS. So I think that, over the next 5 years, we'll also see a major change in the geography of who's making up engineers, leaders, and the factory floor here in America, which is great to see because, a large percentage of college graduates are now women. And, I'm hoping to see that we can extend that to the trades as well.
I agree. I was asked to speak at the Southern Automotive Women's Forum probably 6-7 years ago. And at that time, I was talking about things that were available to women in manufacturing, the opportunities, and to talk about grants and scholarships. And it's great to see that we're finally starting to pull more people into our industry, and they're seeing success and they're seeing greater and greater opportunities. So I'm excited for that. I know that's something that you're passionate about, and I agree with you 100%.
And I think it's important because we have to maintain our global competitiveness. For example, I was just reading in the journal that China installed almost as many robots last year in its factories compared to the rest of the world. I think it was something like 40-some%. So, we have to maintain our global competitiveness. And, the only way that we can do that is by taking advantage of the very best minds, in the United States. So, wherever those minds come from, whether it's women, different minorities, it doesn't matter. But, we definitely need those minds as we continue to try to face challenges like our chip shortage, as an example. Mm-hmm. And, batteries is another area. The Detroit 3, they're investing hundreds of $millions in new battery plants that are going to be, put into place in places like Kentucky and other states. So we're going to need lots of talent to work at those plants. And, we can talk about it. I'm sure you've talked about it with other guests on your show. There's definitely a shortage, right? Oh, yeah. In the trades, in engineers, pretty much, throughout the entire organization. I know we have actually just hired an internal recruiter because we have so many positions, in each one of our locations that we're struggling to fill. And, I don't want to cry on your shoulder here. But, again, I think the point is to, try to talk a lot about STEM in our schools, mm-hmm. to, really focus on partnering with educational institutions and doing things like Manufacturing Day and bringing mm-hmm. students into your plant so that, we can show our country that, manufacturing is a great environment. You can have a great career. It's not, dirty or unsafe. And that it's overall, it's important for us to maintain our industrial base as a country, right?
Yes, very much so. What do you think we need to do as a whole, as manufacturers, to attract the, as you mentioned earlier, the brightest minds to our industry? How do we achieve that in a very competitive world for talent?
Well, I think it's different now what's going to attract workers than what has attracted workers in the past 10 or 20 years. Again, going back to your theme of looking ahead, 5 years from now, when we're going to have tons of Generation Z, individuals coming into the workforce, or, by that point, having pretty significant roles within the workforce. These people, from what I understand, they're looking for, different type of fulfillment. It's not necessarily just, money based. they're looking to make sure that they are employed with companies that value them, that want to, hear their perspectives, that are, focused on things like sustainability and diversity. And, one of the big things that, everyone's writing about, as some companies are electing to bring everyone back to the office, staying fully remote, or doing something in the middle. I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for manufacturing, because you can't bring your stamping press home with you, right?
No.
There's only a few jobs that in our industry you can do and be successful with a hybrid schedule. So that's definitely something that's going to be challenging. But in manufacturing, we have to remember that we're competing against other industries that might offer some of those more attractive, flexible type benefits.
That's absolutely true. And I'm not sure if you've seen some of these remotely controlled vehicles for, like, for instance, fork trucks that are driven remotely, and robots that are controlled remotely. Do you think that might be an opportunity too? It can be, but when a situation arises that the robot might not recognize, and I'll give you a fun example that I saw. It was a Tesla driving in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And I don't know if you're familiar, but that's a heavily Amish area. Mm-hmm. And the car's technology, or AI, had difficulty recognizing the horse and buggy in front of it. It couldn't figure out whether it should be a runner, a motorcycle. And so, I think there's definitely a place for that. And as the technology gets better, but there's always going to be, a circumstance that doesn't fit that 80-20 rule. Mm-hmm. And so I still think you're going to need, people in the plant physically for when those situations arise. I mean, I can tell you, we do have, some equipment in some of our plants where that software is being controlled by somebody that, might not be on location, but, to say that that's going to extend to one of our stamping presses that's running, 600 strokes per minute, I think we're far away from that happening. Right. When you think about the technologies that you see, what are some of the ones that really excite you and say, wow, that is something that we should take advantage of, in the next 5 years? What would it be?
Again, AI is definitely making a lot of strong gains. In fact, we've been able to replace some operator involvement with AI-based machine learning in inspection technologies. So I think as that technology gets better, you will see it more and more across the factory floor. But, there's still some imperfections there, as I mentioned, but it's something that I think we need to continually invest in and, also experiment with. Same thing with cobots. Cobots still are a little bit slower, or a lot slower than traditional robots, but they are getting better year after year. And another area that gets a lot of press is additive manufacturing. Again, still not nearly as fast or competitive with a lot of traditional manufacturing methods, but it's gaining momentum as the technology matures, in my opinion.
Right. I agree with that. I think that there's still some challenges that we have within additive. It doesn't fit everything, and some people may have portrayed additive to replace all equipment, but I think the reality that people have come up with as far as additive is not that it's replacing a press or a press brake or a machining center. It's that for those other applications or multiple applications that have to be combined. So if you have a part that has 6 components, if I can do that at once in an additive process, that starts to justify the feel that yes, this is let's switch from what we're currently doing to this new technology. Do you think that happens or has an opportunity for companies?
Definitely. And I think it's also going to be volume based. Mm-hmm. Super high volume applications, especially in industries like automotive. It might not make sense, but in lower volume areas where you have, fewer number of parts that, might have some of the complexities that you just described, I think that the opportunity there is greater. One of the areas that we've taken advantage of additive manufacturing is in fixtures for tooling, for inspection. I know that some companies have actually made advances in tooling components made from an additive process, which I think is exciting as well.
Yeah, I've seen one area that I thought was really intriguing, which is in the robot grippers, using more additive to build your own, so to speak, because you can buy some generic ones, but do you think that there's more opportunities to execute those kinds of plans?
Yes, and we have actually printed our own grippers for our cobots that we have in some of our vertical molding applications to facilitate loading and unloading, and also some of the inspection activities that are occurring in those cells. And yeah, it's worked really great. So that's definitely an area that I think other companies can look to. But I would say if you don't have a 3D printer or different types of additive manufacturing, you have to experiment with it a little bit. Get a couple units in your facility and play around with them. And I think that same logic would apply to a cobot. Sometimes you have to experiment a little with these technologies to kind of see where and how you can use them to improve areas of your business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Do you think what do you think the opportunity is for cobots? And I agree that like the numbers you've heard from China and that's realistic. I think that people often think that, well, in China they just throw more labor at it. That is really not the case. I mean, they can do that, but that's not what they want to do either. They want to make sure that only the people that the thing that you have to do, that you have to do it. But if it can be done by a robot, do it.
And their infinite workforce, that's changing.
Yeah.
As they face an aging population, they're not going to be able to, backfill, that labor with the same number of new people coming in to their population. So, I think part of it is, yes, they definitely want to keep pace with, Europe, Japan, and the U.S. in terms of robots and cobots. But for them, it's a necessity too. And, as far as cobots are concerned, they are a little bit slower because they're not protected and they need to, function in a way that keeps them safe. But again, they are improving. So I see that we will be able to use them in more situations. And the thing that I think is going to be critical to the success of having cobots and robots is making sure that you have the talent that can keep those robots and automation and cobots in good working order. So we're going to need to make sure that we invest in education around robotics, making sure we have good programmers and also people that are, mechanical as well, so that they can, address, some of the ongoing issues that, of course, you're going to have with any equipment in the factory.
What would you say as far as the ease of learning now on some of these cobots and robots? Used to be you had to have a programmer, period. If you wanted to do anything, you had to have a programmer. But a lot of the interfaces now are improving. Has that opened the door for you to get maybe not necessarily a lesser skilled, but a differently skilled person to come in and work on a line that's using a robot like that?
I would agree with you. I think that in general, some of the younger people that are coming into the workforce, they've been exposed to, many different types of programming from, an early age. I can tell you my 9-year-old son, he, built a robot last year in school and learned some basic programming. So, the software, along with, again, that early exposure, I think is going to allow for exactly what you said, some more, technician level support versus, requiring a high-end programmer for those types of maintenance activities. I think, in terms of developing programs, developing automation cells, I think you're still going to need a high level of talent for the beginning part. But again, on a day-to-day basis, you could probably get away with an individual that you described.
Yeah. Now, was he programming, your son, was he programming a Lego robot, or was he doing more advanced robots?
It was more advanced. They actually built the robot from scratch.
Wow.
So it was an enrichment activity that he did after school, sort of like a club. And it was a kit where you got all the parts for the robot. So they they built the robot, and then they learned the coding language to give it some early commands, and then later on some different tests like pull this item, or traverse this incline, things like that. He had a lot of fun doing it.
Nice. But that, to me, that's the opportunity that we have of getting people interested in this in our workforce, is showing that this is an opportunity, that these are the kinds of things that can be done and we're looking forward to, because things like VEX robotics and FIRST robotics competitions, they give kids an opportunity to get involved in programming robots, but more importantly, building the robots and understanding what it can and can't do. I'm 100% on board to try and find new ways to get kids involved. And I think starting with the Lego robot competitions and moving through the other ones, it's so unbelievable, the opportunity nowadays. You think about the technology in drones, the technology in robots. Millions and millions of dollars went into the technology of a $100 or few $100 robot. And that gives more people an opportunity to acquire and or get exposed to it. So I see more schools even getting involved because it's a smaller investment. Do you see that opportunity lending itself to getting more people involved in technology?
Absolutely. I can tell you, when we give, towards that, the high school level, there are so many kids that walk away very impressed, not by the stamping presses going up and down necessarily, but more so the robots that we have, right? And I think it's because they can relate to it, because it's something that they've been exposed to, at the high school level. Maybe on the weekends, they're flying drones with their friends. And I know that a lot of the colleges and universities now have drone competitions and other robotic type competitions. So I totally agree with you. Exposure is early exposure is definitely key. And then continuing to advance that exposure through the high school and, higher education, and, our industry, manufacturing, embracing that, and then, recruiting these young people who have that exposure and that talent, and, giving them the opportunity to present new ideas on how we can integrate robots in a way that maybe you or I haven't even imagined yet.
Right. I thought when I got involved with additive, one of the most interesting thing is I was not, when STEM was created, I was not a fan of STEAM,
right,
which added the art side of it. But when I started to see people get involved that could envision things that weren't technically engineering related, that you'd say, well, you can't do that. But they would push the boundaries of what you could do more than somebody who was limited by already being in some other form of manufacturing. And they could see things that other people didn't even envision. So I completely did a 180 on that. And I'm very impressed with the new opportunities for that, and also to get a wider audience involved. Do you see more people getting involved and getting that next level of talent brought in that have more of a creative eye?
Yes, I think, creativity, has always had a place in manufacturing. But I think, like you said, STEAM, changes that a little bit and opens the doors and maybe makes manufacturing engineering, the mathematics side of things, maybe it makes it a little bit less scary and offers, a place for creativity in terms of its level of importance. So I would definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with saying it's scary. I believe, in my opinion, I'm in my 50s, so I'm more scared of doing things and making a mistake than somebody who's 18. It's
of course.
it's a different world for them. They are not intimidated by technology at all. They are not afraid to make a mistake. And I think that adds something to their adventurousness of taking on challenges that for many of us, we might say, well, I don't know if we want to go down that road. That's too much. Can you think of any other people within your business, within your company, that have really kind of highlighted that? And do you have any stories of that?
Yes, sure. So our most recent acquisition and newest location was a very small company that was started by two PhDs in Boulder, Colorado. Relatively, young guys with some amazing ideas, but not a ton of exposure to manufacturing. And the reason that we acquired them, the company's name is Lupin Research in Boulder, Colorado, was because we not only wanted to have our eyes set on what's going to happen in the next 5 years in terms of manufacturing and our customers, but what does the next 10 or 15 years look like in manufacturing? And those individuals are, on the laboratory side of material development, automation, machine learning, and AI. And, some of the things that they come up with, you would just shake your head at, but it's that ingenuity, it's that, mindset that has made them and us in turn successful, where we've applied some of the ideas that they've had and, they've been able to bring them to fruition. And we now have, on the automation side, we now have some of their equipment on our manufacturing floor that has an AI component. Mm-hmm. And also some of the material areas that were developed by them are now in, medical devices that we're producing every day.
That's incredible.
You wouldn't think that, a couple PhDs would fit into a 50-year-old, company that was founded, as a tool and die and metal stamping company. But, you have to continue to, I guess it's very cliche, but think outside the box to bring new people, new ideas, different backgrounds. And, they often do come up with things that you and I wouldn't think about.
Yeah. I like that idea. And I think when it comes to AI, that's so much more of where we can go. There's an opportunity to apply that in everything from when a machine tool is going to go down to maintaining the presses and even take on a level of predictiveness within your scheduling. I think that, to me, offers so many new ideas and so many new opportunities for us to explore, that we can take it to a whole different level now. Do you see more AI coming in, and in what areas do you envision them?
So one of the strongest areas that I see and that we've had success is in defect detection. So, a lot of the products we make have not only critical dimensions for form, fit, and function, but on our medical device side and even in some of our other areas, there are very strong cosmetic specifications that we have to meet. In the past, a lot of those inspections or quality measures had to be done by a human because of the variation across the spectrum of what those defects might be. Where AI, has come into play is its ability to, learn through machine learning to identify defects and be able to remove some of the human component from those inspections. That, along with inbound and outbound vision and other automated inspection technologies, that's definitely an area where I see AI becoming a very strong component of manufacturing.
That's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of that. Do you think that using AR, augmented reality, to supplement your talent pool, you have how many locations total?
6.
6. So 6 locations, and you might have one expert that you use across the 6 different locations, but to fly them from place to place takes time and those types of things. But I see more people using augmented reality, AR, to be the eyes and ears, to be able to troubleshoot, be able to let that person sort of manage a group of people. So they can use a on-site maintenance person to put on the goggles and go out, and now you can see that now your expert who's 1,000 miles away can see what the challenge is. He or she can highlight, draw on, explain what needs to be done, where the improvements need to be made. And rather than trying to hire people, especially with the challenges we have now with hiring people, do you think that can help supplement the skill set that we need?
Yes, it's interesting that you brought that up. We actually have purchased that type of technology, and in the same vein of acquiring new technology like that, and maybe not necessarily having a need for it right away. We acquired that technology because we wanted to experiment with it to see if it could be used in the manner that you just described. Mm-hmm. So, we have been experimenting with it, and I can share that the team that has been working on it feels that it is a very strong candidate to do what you just said. And, it gives maybe one of our, senior automation engineers in New Jersey the ability to see what's happening at our Mexico plant, as an example. So we haven't had, I would say, like an emergency use situation where we've had to have somebody try to remotely diagnose something that was happening with a piece of equipment. But we have been able to use that technology when we've been installing a new piece of equipment to, discuss some of those, things that come up when you're doing an installation. So I definitely agree with you. I think you can augment some of your, soldiers on the ground, to say, at a different location. Again, will you fully be able to have that location not ever need that key person to fly in, I think we're, a bit far away from that. But, who knows, maybe sometime in the next 10 years, we'll see technology, act in the way that you described.
That's fantastic. What other technologies, we're just about out of time here, what other technologies or new things are you seeing or create new opportunities?
Well, I think, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to materials. There's a lot of discussions going on around new battery technologies, new, raw materials, new methods of processing raw materials, lightweighting in vehicles. So I think as we look at some of the shortages in different supply chains, companies are having to be flexible and coming up with new raw materials that they can use. So I think that, we need to continue to focus on looking at how we can use some different materials and different applications, and hopefully try to reduce some of the supply chain issues that we've seen and reliance on maybe some materials that come from certain geographic areas. I think that that's going to be, a focus for a lot of industries as we look at what's been happening globally with economies and, some of the, political things that are happening as everybody's looking for, independence, from, certain things.
Sure. Beth, thank you so much. This has been wonderful to have you on here today. Anything else? Any final closing ideas or suggestions or how people can reach you?
Sure. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to, have these kinds of conversations. Manufacturing is my passion. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy talking to people like you, Dean, who are also passionate.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, the Precision Metalforming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Dean. Take care now.